You're listening to the Glen Eagle INEC Arena podcast. Keep up to date with all our events by following us on Facebook or visiting inec.ie. Chosen as the nominee for the RTE Folk Awards 2019, Junior Brother has been steadily building a fan base in his current base of Dublin and around the country, winning followers with his unique and powerful live shows. He has played support for a variety of like-minded acts such as the Hothouse Flowers, Paddy Hanna, David Keenan, and more recently has completed a tour of America with Glen Hansard and the UK with the Proclaimers. I travelled up to Dublin to find out more, and we began by bringing it right back home with his love of Kerry. You're very proud of your Kerry roots, like, you know, and a lot of your artwork, a lot of your like imagery is in Kerry, like in the kind of the most bleak, barren landscape of, like, you know, the Irish countryside. What was it about that made you feel like that should be the artwork, or, you know, that should be something you'd represent?
I don't know. I suppose just growing up around it. Maybe it's because it reminds me of childhood or something. I don't know. It definitely I only started like appreciating it, you know, when I started like leaving.
Yeah.
Like after school, like when I started like leaving for college and stuff, and then coming back. I appreciated it more, like, and then the further away I went, then the more I kind of got closer, like, to that landscape, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And to the point now where I'm up in Dublin, and that landscape is behind everything I do musically, you know.
Yeah, and I suppose when you think about coming back to Kerry, you know, that's your childhood, that's where you grew up, and a lot of your songs would you know, explore the themes of youth, especially being young in Ireland, but also like your song "Hung Over at Mass," like that's very Catholic. Like there's a Catholic humor to that resonates with people. Like a lot of people seem to have kind of taken to that song. And what is it about that song in particular that you think people have taken to it so well with?
I suppose in Ireland, like, people like it because it's a very specific thing, but it's also very broad as well.
Yeah. Like
hungover at Mass, that's a very, very specific situation. But it's also in the same token a very broad thing because of how much Catholicism is seeped into the history of Ireland, you know.
Yeah.
And how we all, you know, grew up going to Mass, but also like when I performed it outside of Ireland as well, with people who didn't grow up necessarily in the same way that I did in that sense, also seem to relate to it as well. I was over, it was interesting, opening for Glen Hansard in the East Coast of America, and that was interesting to see the reaction from that particular song. People were still laughing their holes off, like. And I think, and I'm not sure if they even understood what I was saying. They were still laughing, but even those who weren't laughing were enjoying it without finding it funny as well. So, you know, there's the side of the song that people relate to because it's humorous and they relate to it, but there's also the side of it as well that they relate to it because they enjoy the music itself, because it's quite the time signature on it, like, is very unusual, and the finger picking pattern very unusual as well. It took me ages to actually learn how to play. The only song I've written that's actually took me ages to actually learn how to play it, like. So I think people who don't find it funny will at least get some sort of a reaction out of the music from it as well. You know, hopefully it's interesting musically, you know, without just the subject matter being the thing that people relate to with it.
I remember when we were in the SEM, like you, a lot. Was that song written when we were in school?
No. I wrote that when I wrote that like very soon after moving up here.
Yeah, because I remember you used to play a lot of your own stuff quite a bit. We used to practice in the church.
Yeah, you too.
in the SEM.
You too, yeah.
Yeah, the two
Your
of
own
us.
stuff, yeah.
And I used to do a lot of my own, and we you'd sing one of yours, and then I'd sing one of mine.
Yeah.
And probably thinking back now, I mean, that's more than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
They probably weren't as good as, let's say, what you're writing now. Do you think, or do you think you've learned more since going out, on your own as junior brother than you did, let's say, when you started writing?
Yeah, well, it would have taken me a while to find my voice, I suppose.
Yeah.
I would never have considered myself like a singer. You sure? You probably remember that I didn't do much singing really, like back in the day, live or anything. Really.
Not really. You used to do backing vocals.
And stuff, and then the odd one every now and then. Like it would have taken me a while to kind of find like the way I sing.
Yeah.
And then same with the way I write as well.
Yeah.
It would have taken me a while to find that too. But that's all. That's all part of it, really. Like, I'd be very surprised if anyone really knows their sound. At that age, 15, 16. 17. No, I would have been 15 or 16 at the oldest at that time, I suppose. So like I would have been finding voice. Like, gas. We were talking earlier, just down home there the last day.
Yeah.
I found a load of my old CDs, and I made the mistake of putting on a few of them.
Okay.
And it was a bit cringy, I must say. But like, that's, to someone else maybe it wouldn't be as cringy. It would just be like, sure, you were just young back then. But like, it's like you can, listening back, trace the points where have come from. So listening back to where you came from.
Yeah.
Is a bit like, oh Jesus, I'm glad I moved on from there.
And when you were listening back to them, like, what was the, what kind of lyrics? What was the themes of what you were singing as a young 15-year-old?
It was just all over the place, like.
Yeah, girls.
Girls. Oh God, I don't know what else. In my case, it was fucking mad stuff. Just weird, just out of the box stuff. Just all over the place, like, just again trying to find my voice, like, not having found what I want to write about, and not having a focus yet, because I wasn't so used to being as disciplined or whatever writing, as I probably would be now.
Do you think, because you're living in Dublin now, what, the last 3.5, 4 years?
Yeah, I would have been up and down before that,
but
full time about 2.5, 3 years.
Because you went to Ballyfermot. That's originally why you moved up to Dublin, was to study.
That was the excuse, just to move up, to be honest.
Yeah. And what was, did Ballyfermot, like, did it benefit you a lot? Did you make contacts? How did it help you form who you are today?
I suppose, well, like, it's a great course in the way that if you're going to doing your own thing, which I would have been, say about finding the voice. I think I found what I wanted to do right before I moved up.
Yeah.
So they kind of saw that, and they just left me alone. Like, they just didn't try to, change anything. They just gave me loads of encouragement, and they gave me a confidence to be like, all right, I can actually, there's a chance of like making money or making a career or whatever you want to think of it, by making weird music, like.
Yeah. And
I don't know, that helped me find my voice even more then, because I was like, all right, I don't have to like plumos or whatever to an audience to do well or whatever. I can actually just follow my instinct and that'll be all right. Like, so they gave me loads of encouragement to do my own thing, basically.
Yeah.
And, like, that was massive for me, like,
Well, that was the birth of Junior Brother, wasn't it? Like, that's kind of when it started.
Not necessarily. It would have been around, I'd say, the end of when I was living in Cork. I remember I put myself in for a battle of the bands.
Yeah.
And where I was signing in the sheet, and where it said name of act, I was just toying with the idea of being called Junior Brother, and I put in, because I was like, sure, will I actually start going under this name? I put in Ronan Kealy Junior Brother as the act name.
Yeah.
And I was like, the person who puts my name on the roster for the Battle of the Bands, can either put in my real name, can put in the second fake name, or can put in both. And whatever name they put in, I'll go under as that name.
So that was it.
Yeah, so they decided to put in Junior Brother. And then I was like, all right, so I'll...
That's it.
call
No
myself
going
that.
back now.
Yeah, because I was actually playing with the idea of being called Ronan Kealy, Junior Brother.
And where does the name come from? Like where?
It was from a play that I read
Yeah.
called The Revenger's Tragedy. It's the name of a character in the play. The character only has about 5 lines in the play.
Yeah.
But I loved the play. It was from the early 1600s, and I was kind of getting very interested in like the kind of distant past around that time. The Ghosts of Antiquity.
Oh
Remember
yes.
that? Yeah.
That was that a song you wrote?
No, it was just
Or it was just this.
just shite
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
was spouting. Yeah.
yeah,
That was around when I was in Cork, like, so I was getting into that stuff then, you know.
yeah.
I used to go on about this theory of the ghosts of antiquity that I was trying to summon through my music. And it sounds very pretentious now, of course, and laughable, but that's still what I'm kind of trying to do. But anyway, I was getting really into like archaic, older like literature and stuff, and that was part of that. So the name of the character came from an archaic play that's like very mad and off the wall and kind of disturbing and stuff. And I felt at the time anyway, my music, and still now, kind of inhabits a kind of weird old space
Yeah.
that the play did, you know. And that character was an outsider in the play, and a misfit, and I felt that's the space I inhabit in my own old world, you know. So that's where I got the name.
When, like, how would you describe, let's say, to someone that hasn't heard your music yet? Like, what genre would you put it into? How would you describe it to someone?
I find it very hard in general to describe the music to anyone. I suppose broadly you just call it folk, I suppose. Alternative Irish folk,
Yeah.
broadly speaking, I suppose. But there's personally I wouldn't even call it folk music, like, you know.
Well, folk is very broad as well.
Yeah, it's like anyone with an acoustic guitar is folk these days, you know. But I'd be influenced by folk, all right, and by like trad, Irish traditional music, and all that stuff. But I'd be influenced by a lot of other stuff as well. So it all goes in. So like, I suppose like broadly speaking, it'd be alternative Irish folk.
Yeah.
But again, I've trouble with that, even so. If I was to actually describe it, it's probably, I don't know, progressive, avant-garde, experimental folk. I don't know.
Anything else you want to add to that? Is that
Kitchen
long
sink
enough?
as well.
The kitchen sink.
Yeah.
What was it like? So moving past like Ballyfermot, it's one of those courses that a lot of people, especially that would be interested in music, would have heard of. That and BIM, like you were there for a year. You recorded an EP in there. Was that part of your course to
no,
do some recording?
I actually recorded that at home.
Did you? Yeah.
I recorded that in the kitchen in Kilcummin, and I had it recorded, and I didn't know what I was at, and then the Eamon Brady, who's one of the teachers in there, who became kind of very important for me.
Yeah.
I showed it to him, the EP, and he saw the potential in it, like, and what I was doing and stuff, and he was like, "It's great, but it sounds terrible. Do this, and this. Re-record it, but like do these things."
Yeah.
And I went away and re-recorded it with those things in mind, and then I came back to him, and he and another guy who was not in the rock school, he was in some other course, but he was in the studio in the college, mastered it, and then Eamon Brady mixed it, and then that's the EP, Fuck Off, I Love You.
Yeah.
So that was like even though I recorded it all myself, I'd consider that almost like the degree that I took from my time there, you know?
Yeah.
Because they were a massive help for that, obviously, in making it sound good. And those pointers he gave me for recording, like I still keep in mind when I record stuff now. Like
yeah. So when you left Ballyfermot, you didn't come back home. You just literally got a job in Dublin.
Yeah.
What were you doing? What's your day job? Let's say.
I do a bit of tour guiding here and there, like to be able to eat food.
Yeah.
And live in this mansion that we're in now.
Yeah.
As you can see, it's so huge.
There's quite an echo. Yeah.
But geez, like when I finished in Ballyfermot, I was working down in Killarney, and like just not having a great time. The boss was an unholy, terrible man. I'll say it that.
We won't mention any names.
No, and that was a big reason why I moved back up, because I was like, I can't stand this. I love Killarney and being here, but that was the modus operandi to be like, feck it, I'm going back up again.
Yeah.
So I moved back up, and it seemed like, as you can probably imagine, a bit mad at the time to be just to be, because I never really left home before that properly.
Yeah.
And then I just came up, and I just found a room, didn't find a job or anything. Just came up and started the job hunt and realised how hard it is to find a job in Dublin. And then, I was ages. I was writing CVs for people online for a while. That was horrible. And then I was working in a bakery in Tesco.
Really?
That was horrible, yeah, for about a month. And I had to get up at 4:30 every morning, get the bus in, which would bring me in late every day.
Yeah.
Because it was the first bus I could get. And working in a bakery, if you're coming in late, is not a good thing, because you need to put everything on and give it an hour to bake.
Some people are.
So I was shooting myself in the foot there.
Yeah, people have no toast for their breakfast if you miss the bus. Like
the city of Dublin starved because of my bus every morning, and then I got a job working as a tour guide on a famine ship.
Is that the Jeannie Johnson?
That's the Jeannie Johnson, yeah.
I remember when they were building that in Blennerville, yeah. When we were kids, we went down to see him then build the boat, and these guys were building the boat. I don't know what you call boat builders. Boat builders, I suppose.
Yeah.
He was hammering wood.
Ship builders in this case.
A ship builder, yeah.
Let's go with that. Yeah.
He was hammering the boat, but he wasn't paying attention, and so he gave his finger an awful mighty whack, and started screaming every curse word under the sun. But I was only about 7 or 8, and we were listening to him. I could see him. He was kind of parasailed down the side of the boat. So that was my first experience with the Jeannie Johnson, and
that poor man.
I wondered, I hope he's all right. I'd say he's probably missing a thumb. So, what kind of people do you get on the boat? Are they like American tourists? Are they Irish people? I mean, are they just history buffs looking to learn some history about famine ships? Like,
yeah, you'd get a lot of tourists, I suppose, on board. Just tourists really, and just. But as you say, it's nice that it's close to home, all the stories, so it's like, it's about the famine, which I'd have a big enough interest in anyway.
Yeah.
But it's also, you're talking about, Killarney, Tralee, Blennerville, and the history of those areas, like, so. So
it suits you being obviously a Kerry man in Dublin. It's authentic.
And it was very good as well for getting me comfortable in front of audiences,
Yeah, because I suppose you have to stand up in front of people every day and
perform. Yeah.
And do you
tell stories?
Do you wear an outfit?
No, I don't.
Oh no.
No, I don't. That'd be that'd be a bit strange. No, no, I just
Like a pirate or something.
no. That'd be a different buzz now if I had to do that. But no, just standing in front of people and just talking. That's been actually very important, really, and like just learning how to be in front of people, because being by yourself on a stage in front of a crowd is a very unusual thing, especially because I'd be fairly, I would consider myself fairly shy and like I suppose introverted in a lot of ways, so it's a very unnatural thing to go up on your own, perform in front of people then. So like being forced to go in front of people every day, and just talk off the top of your head is like jumping in at the deep end, and that was hugely important for me, you know, as a solo act, you know.
Do you feel, because you're going to have new people on the boat, let's say, every day listening to you, like, do you feel like you're repeating yourself every day, or do you still enjoy it as much as you did when you started?
You'd be repeating yourself, all right, yeah. That's the thing about tour guiding, I suppose. You're kind of, you're saying the same things, but again, because it's kind of close to home, it's kind of, it's easy to come from a kind of a real place when you're talking about it all, you know?
Yeah.
So it'd be different if I was talking about, like, the Spire or something, you know?
Well, like I said, there's not a whole pile you can say about the Spire.
No. Well, there's, like... there's a lot in Dublin you can't say a whole pile about, like the new all the new stuff going on the Grand Canal docks and stuff like that. But it's nice on the Jeannie Johnson to be talking about the history of where you're from. There's a lot I can talk about and get interested in myself, you know.
Yeah.
And what I do anyway is storytelling, I suppose, you know, with the music. So it all ties in nicely.
Moving on a small bit, when did you feel your music was kind of starting to be noticed in Dublin, especially? Like, when did you feel like your audience was growing?
Yeah, it's a good question to ponder.
I'll let you ponder there now for a minute.
We go to an break.
We'll be back after this.
I suppose like last year.
Yeah,
I would have seen it like
because you got signed to Strange Brew Records, which is
it would have been then, I suppose.
Yeah.
That'd be a good marker. Googie is my booking agent.
Yeah, and he kind of runs the Roisin Dove.
Yeah.
And I was listening to a podcast he was doing, the Irish Music Industry podcast.
Yeah. Mark Graham,
Yeah, which now is a rival podcast to this one.
Yes, so we won't mention that now. Yes.
But he's his finger in a couple of different pies, because he has a couple of artists on the go. David Keenan would be another one, and Dahi, I think, is Dahi still with him?
Yeah. Dahi, Paddy Hanna.
Yeah.
Loads more, Squarehead, and Malaki, yeah.
What else did he do? He runs the Roisin Dove. He's involved with the Galway Arts Festival as well, I think.
Yeah.
What was it, do you think, made him go, Junior Brother, I want you?
Well, I did a gig with one of his acts, Paddy Hanna, and another one, Sinead White. She sings with Dahi.
Yeah.
Just because he'd heard my music somehow. He's the most on the ball man in Ireland for music, like.
Yeah.
The most, like, he knows what a young fella in a basement in bloody, you know, wherever, Inishmore or something is doing, you know, he knows everything really. So he found out about me somehow, and he got me to play a gig in the Workman's in Dublin with those acts. And I mentioned on stage, I remember that I was recording my album.
Yeah.
And at this stage, I think I was like, I didn't have a day job. I was like drawing the dole and stuff, and I had no money at all, to the point where I was like, I have no money to like pay the people who've helped me with this album.
Yeah.
And I kind of kept saying it on stage, partly telling people what I was working on, but partly hoping there'd be someone in the audience to go,
give you a few bob.
I'll give him a few bob. I like this music, you know.
Yeah.
So I said it on stage, and then he heard it, and he came up and he was like, "Oh, I heard you're doing an album there. Give me your details and we'll talk. And then he rang me the next week and was like, I'll manage you, 360 deal. I'll put out the album on vinyl. And it was like, just fell on my lap.
Yeah. That's, you're lucky. You're so lucky. He was, well, obviously he booked you for the gig, so he was going to be there, but it was really great timing, like, you know. Yeah.
And he's been great. He's just so connected and experienced, you know. And it was from working with him really things started taking off, like, you know.
And what's it like working with him? Because you're in Dublin most of the time. He's in Galway. Do you kind of travel to each other all the time, or would you be going to Galway quite a bit?
We'd just be on the phone, I suppose, like all the time and communicating that way. And like it's. I was wondering, like, him being on the other side of the country, you know, that sounds massive, but we're only in Ireland, I suppose. So it's it's still not as far away as Kerry, like, you know, Galway. Like,
Dublin to Galway, 2 hours.
Yeah, on the bus, or in the car, even less. But like, it's great, like, because now I have a base in Dublin and also in Galway. You know? So there are two places that, like, I've built up, you know, and then and those have been two bases then to go elsewhere. Yeah. So, like, it's been great in that way. Like, he's very well connected in Galway, and me being based in Dublin the last 4 years or whatever. Yeah. You know, they're like two kind of HQs, you know.
So through being signed to Strange Brew, you got to play a good few festivals: Body and Soul, Knock and Stockin', and Electric Picnic over the last 2-3 summers, I think it was, maybe. What's it been like? Because I'm sure as a musician, like, you always really want to play at a festival, like, you know, because you kind of find a lot of your own people there as well at the same time. Like, it's what's it been like, kind of playing around Ireland at the different music festivals, and what do you think the differences are, let's say, between Knock and Stock and Body and Soul, Electric Picnic, you know?
Yeah. The differences between them, like, I don't know. There's not a great deal of difference other than how big the festival itself is. Like, we say, you mentioned Knock and Stockin' there, very kind of grassroots, homegrown festival. Yeah, is massive, you know. It's just very big, and with that comes, you know, there's more people that would come up to the show. But with that also, there's less of the homegrown kind of nature, the grassroots thing that would be with a festival like Knock and Stockin'. You know? And that's good. It's also not so good in a way too, because it's less kind of, it's more impersonal, I suppose. But the thing that ties them all together is that with a festival you just meet the different people that are listening to you, like, from all over the place, you know, who descend upon these festivals. So that's really interesting to kind of to meet these people, you know. Yeah.
Because you were a busy man. Even Electric Picnic this year, you did like 3 gigs.
Yeah. That was, I would say I was nearly spreading myself a bit too thin there. Because you're camping as well, you know. Yeah. And you arrive to the festival and you're like, all right, I have these gigs, and then you're like, oh, I have to put up a tent as well. Put up the tent, then you go and do your fucking, you know, I think I did 4 gigs actually. Really? Yeah, I played one gig with David Keenan, and then I played 3 other gigs, my own gigs. Yeah. Now that was last year. This summer I only did, how many did I do this year? I think I did 2 this year. And that was still a lot. Yeah. So now I'm just going to be doing 1.
You learned the hard way.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just it's hardship. Like, I've learned one of the biggest things I've learned, like, over the past, like, a year and a half, 2 years, traveling, like, doing gigs, is just to make life easy on yourself, you know. Yeah. Especially with festivals, because, you know, you can say, oh yeah, I'm young, whatever, I can camp in a tent and do my gig and stuff, and I can, get a shite bus from here to here for hours on end. But like at the end of the day, like it's a very psychological thing playing a gig,
Yeah.
as you know yourself, and you need to have all the psychological space you can have. So like, it is worth paying the extra few quid to like put yourself up in a bit of a in a room, as opposed to a tent, like I was doing a festival over in Yorkshire called the Deer Shed Festival, and I brought my tent and everything, and I was like, I'm gonna camp at this festival because feck paying money. And then at the last minute I was like, do you know what, I'm gonna book a Premier Inn just outside the town.
Treat yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, feck it, I will, and I arrived at the festival and it just was a downpour.
Yeah.
Mud everywhere, like did not stop, and there was literally mud everywhere, and I was like, after the gig, oh no, I have to camp in this now.
Yeah.
And then I remembered, oh no, I don't. Got a taxi out of the festival after my set, went into this Premier Inn, and I was never as happy to see a bath. I think I had a bath. I ran a bath for myself to celebrate.
So there's
not camping in the festival.
There's a big difference now between you camping in a tent 2-3 years ago to you now going home after a gig at a festival, having a bath.
Well, it meant I didn't make any money on the festival, but it also meant that
the comfort,
and just the fact I didn't have to be thinking about it even during the set itself. I could focus on playing, and really enjoyed the gig and enjoyed the sleep as well.
Good man.
Thank you.
Speaking of travelling, by the way, because you went over to America on tour with Glen Hansard. How did that come about? Because Glen Hansard is synonymous, not just in Ireland, but nearly all over the world at this stage. Like, he's had such a career. He was in The Simpsons.
Was he?
He was, yeah. He's in The Simpsons. That could be you next. And you're in your bath in the Premier Inn. How did that gig come about? How did you end up on tour of America with Glen Hansard?
Yeah, that was very out of the blue. I was gigging over in Scotland with Paddy Hanna, and I got a message on my Instagram from him, and I had no idea he even knew who I was, and he was just like, it was from he has like a personal page on Instagram,
like
which
a
is not
private
under
page.
his name.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a fake page maybe or something. I thought he'd be like, hey, would you like to come on tour with me? By the way, what are your credit card details?
Yeah, but, I have $1 billion for you. Can you send me on your details?
I have come into a lot of money.
Yeah, Glen Hansard. So
out of the blue like that, he just messaged me and was like, hello, Ronan. He knew what my name was even, and was like, I'm going on a tour of the East Coast next month. Would you like to open for me? I know it's a hassle getting a visa and stuff, but if you can sort it, we'd love to have you. And I was like, pfft. And then he gave his number at the end of it, and I was like, jeez. And then I went in, and it was like, there was loads of selfies of him and stuff, so I was like, that's Glenn. But anyway, I realised, jeez, this is him. And I was having breakfast with Paddy in a place in Edinburgh at the time, and I was like, jeez, Glen Hansard's just after messaging me here. And he was like, "Whoa, geez, that's mad." So that's how it came about. It was just so out of the blue like that.
And did you?
Do you know?
You rang him. What was that? How did that phone call go?
I didn't ring him. I just messaged back, and I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to do it. I don't have a visa, but I'll try to sort something out." And it ended up then I got an ESTA, which is the tourist visa.
Yeah.
And I didn't bring my guitar with me. I just went over pretending to be visiting my family in. I have an aunt in Boston.
Yeah.
And just so happened that was where the first gig was on.
Yeah.
So I was flying in there anyway. I was really lucky, like.
Yeah.
And I said I was staying with them and just sailed through customs and went over and used his guitar and opened for him along the East Coast, yeah. It was that was like, there was some crazy moments.
Yeah. So you're talking New York, Boston...
Philly,
Washington,
DC, yeah.
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 And the big crowds, like he's he's big in America.
I didn't realise how big he actually was in America, like the East Coast. Like,
yeah,
they were all sold out. Like the Beacon Theatre was 2,800 people.
Yeah.
And every night before I went out, he came out himself with his acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
Unplugged, and would go to the edge of the stage and like sing one of his like most well-known songs.
Yeah.
Take it out of his set list and sing it then, just to get people in, like, to see me.
Yeah.
Like.
That's...
I was nearly like crying at the side of the stage, like, every night. It was one of the most moving things that's ever happened. Like it was, and like, gave me a big introduction then, and it was the week after the album came out as well.
Yeah.
So it was like,
and that album went like #1, like in.
It was like,
I think it did anyway in a few places.
Well, it was those things happening just kind of raised the kind of profile of it, and made it do well or whatever in the week it came out. How
did the Proclaimers gig come around? Because you went on tour in America with Glen Hansard, but you did also a tour of the UK and Ireland with the Proclaimers. How did Mr. Proclaimer get onto an Instagram and
Mr. Proclaimer hit me up? Yes.
Tinder. How did he get in contact with you?
They seem to be two men, but they're actually one man called Mr. Proclaimer.
Is that right?
The Proclaimers, yes.
Yeah.
They look like twins, but that's only because you're not wearing your glasses. So you're actually seeing one man called the Proclaimer. No,
they're the Proclaimers after a couple of pints. So how does that work out?
Very good. That came about basically. I work with Aiken Promotions.
Yeah.
Leagues O'Toole is my Dublin promoter.
Yeah.
And he would kind of pitch me to acts that he'd be thinking would be good for me to open for or whatever. And a lot of the times these acts have their own, people, especially bigger acts. But the Proclaimers were playing in Vicar Street here in Dublin. And he pitched me to them, and they loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And they got me to play for them, to open up. And that was December last year. So it was the biggest audience I'd ever played to. It was sold out,
Yeah.
And and so after that, they were like, after the gig, like, oh, you were very good, we'll get you again. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I didn't pay much heed to that, because I was like, they say that to everyone.
Yeah.
But true to their word, then they were like, their manager got on to me then and was like, the lads are doing a UK and Ireland tour, would you like to open for them? And I was like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it came about. They're dead on, like, and the whole crew is so sound. And again, I was very fortunate to be like on the road. I won't say with, I'll say following. A crew of such sound heads.
Yeah,
because it's very tough, like, opening for a big act,
Yeah.
So I've learned as well abroad, because you're sorting out your own accommodation, you're sorting out your own travel.
Really, that's not looked after, so you have to do all that yourself.
Yeah, you have to do that yourself, like, and the UK tour especially was tough because it was longer than the American tour was. So, like, one of the journeys I made was from Brighton, which is at the very bottom of England,
mm-hmm.
to Carlisle, which is literally at the very top of England.
Yeah.
So that was insane. But it makes such a difference then when the people are sound, because you'd get to the venue then, and even the sound guy or the monitor tech or whatever would come up to you and would be like, how was your journey? Did you get here all right? Where are you staying? You'd nearly feel like if you didn't have a place to stay, they'd fucking, they'd get you on a couch or something. So, like, you could obviously be opening for a big band that's very, everyone's just like, oh, it's a big act. Don't even think about the opening act,
Yeah.
Glen's crews, the exact same. They were all so sound.
Yeah.
A lot of them are Irish as well, so they'd kind of be like, oh, it's the young Irish fella on tour with us,
Yeah.
So, like, it makes a huge difference, when they're just sound, doing those kind of bigger tours.
I say you never thought when you were in when you were in, back in the Sem in Killarney, like that, when you were playing in the church with me, like that you'd be opening up, for 500 miles, the Proclaimers, like, like, because that's such it is an iconic song, like in a way, because any bar you go into, I'd say around the world, like, they would know 500 miles, like.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
So I'd say that probably must have been.
Well, it was surreal, seeing it from the side of the stage, like the actual band who played that song, playing it in front of like solo crowds, and it was gas every night before they played that song. That was the point where they'd be like, "And we'd like to say a big thank you to Junior Brother who opened for us tonight. Fantastic." And then they'd 1, 2, 3, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
They just go into fucking
brilliant.
one of the most iconic songs of all time.
Yeah.
So that was very surreal to see that and be like associated somehow with that.
Yeah.
That was gas.
Did you document your trips when you'd be on tour? Do you take videos of everywhere you go, or do you just?
No, actually, I wouldn't. But just because I'd be on my own, I suppose. And I wouldn't be a person really for taking out the phone usually.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you wouldn't think of doing like a vlog, like the way like girls do makeup tutorials. You could just do your tour tutorial. Like I might actually do something like that again. Though I wouldn't find it very natural to take the phone out and go, "Hey guys." Yeah,
just here on the train,
just checking in.
Especially since I'm on my own as well, it might actually be a bit of a sad old vlog, if I go around the place on my own.
It could come across very lonesome in a way.
It's my 37th day in the Premier Inn here.
But just make sure you take a big video of the crowd you're playing to as well, so you're not actually on your own.
Well, like I'm starting to play now with a little band actually, so and there's a few dates abroad that I'm taking them with me. So I might actually be able to, and Tony McLaughlin, who's the mandolin player, is a great man for the taking out the phone, actually. So I might actually get him to do a bit of a vlog, maybe. Yeah. Watch this space, folks.
Yeah, well,
the Junior Brother vlog is on the way.
You heard it here first.
Yes.
So in this podcast, Ronan, I want to ask, a lot of the guests the same questions, because I know the answers aren't going to be the same for all. Mm-hmm. And it kind of we get to know you a little bit easier, a bit better. And so we fire into these, and I want to. I'd be interested to hear what you have to answer for these. What's the most embarrassing thing to happen to you at school?
Oh, you could probably answer this for me. I'd say maybe. I don't know. Let me think now.
Getting an A1 in honours English.
That was really embarrassing. Yeah. I was a fairly quiet student. I kept to myself. I do remember one time after study, a classmate, while I was at my locker, I think I was in third year, came up behind me and put chewing gum in my hair. And I had to go, do you remember this?
No? And I wish I did.
And I had to go, and that's how embarrassing it was. I didn't tell anyone. He put chewing gum in my hair, and I had to go. My mother picked me up, and I had to go to the hairdressers and get my hair cut to get the chewing gum off my hair.
Have you ever sent a text to the wrong person?
Yeah, a few times I sent the wrong message to my mum on WhatsApp, but thankfully there weren't anything embarrassing. It would just be like a short message that would just sound just out of context. Yeah. And I'd say, "Oh, sorry, that was for the wrong person."
Yeah.
I'm quite a boring person really in my texts, so it wasn't anything too scandalous, I'm afraid to say.
What job would you be terrible at?
Oh.
Maybe being a baker, I'd say. Sure.
I couldn't do that too well, no. But I blamed that on the bus bringing me in too late, so I couldn't bake the food properly. I'd be very bad at anything like numbers related. I'm very bad with numbers.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, an accountant. I'd probably be very bad as an
I
accountant.
can imagine that involves quite a bit of numbers.
There'd be a bit of numbers in that, yeah.
What's the craziest thing you've ever done?
Oh, do this podcast. Oh,
Really?
Crazy. The craziest thing I ever did, I don't know, probably moving up to Dublin that time with no job and nowhere to stay or anything, just going
A wife and 3
Moving up.
kids.
at home to fend for, left all that behind and had a good job as an accountant at home.
Nice pension. You know, everything was going your way.
That was a bit of a mad move, I suppose. Yeah. In hindsight.
What's the weirdest fact you know?
I know too many, that's the problem. There's millions of them running through my head at the moment. Well, I'll tell you a very useless fact about a bridge. The Halfpenny Bridge, which we all know and love in Dublin, is the oldest cast iron bridge in Europe, and approximately 4,000 people cross it every single hour.
Go away.
Isn't that a weird fact?
Get out of town.
There we go now. You learn something every episode.
All right. What cheesy song do you love? Do you secretly love?
Oh, well, there's no such thing as guilty secrets, Cathal. Let me tell you that.
Right.
We should all love and cherish all songs equally and individually. But I do love. I love that song by Hall & Oates. You make my dreams come true. Ooh, 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 ooh. And
What film was that in?
oh, that was in lots of films, I think. That was in.
Yeah.
I feel like that was in lots of films.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like a lot of ABBA as well.
Do you?
I like a lot of ABBA, yeah. ABBA are class, yeah. I mean, come on, it's ABBA.
That's mad now. I didn't think you liked ABBA.
Well, you can't really argue with ABBA, I don't think. Dancing Queen's a great tune, you know. Winner Takes It All.
Yes.
While we're on the subject of this, I like a bit of Shania Twain as well.
Do you?
Yeah. Oh man, I feel like a woman.
So final question. So, what job do you think you'd be great at?
I'm not sure now. Something where I don't have to... Something that I could just use my hands probably. And not have to think a lot, and would be able to come up with songs while I'm working. So like anything that involves like mindless cleaning.
Yeah.
You know, using my
Or like a
hands.
tree surgeon.
A tree surgeon. Yes. I'd be a great tree surgeon. What does that involve?
You just chop down trees.
Is that it?
Yeah.
It sounds much more complicated than it is then.
Well, you
Sorry
don't.
to tree surgeons listening.
No, you don't use an axe. You use like a one of those
A
machines.
special machine to cut the
Yeah.
tree. You'd be able to tell the age of the tree and
A
stuff.
tree surgeon. Well,
That sounds like an interesting job.
a tree surgeon kind of mainly they would if there was a tree overgrown and it might be
Yeah.
maybe considered a hazard, or it might
Yeah.
fall
Yeah.
in the next storm, like the tree surgeon would be called.
But you
And they
don't
would
want to
trim
be,
it back.
You don't want to be cutting down one of those fairy trees, one of those hawthorns.
No.
You don't want to be doing that because you'll get the sheen of blood on your case. The fairy folk.
And Quilta will be coming around the corner.
But actually, that made me think of a job that I actually think I'd be good at, which is a job that you had before, which is cutting grass, mowing
Yes.
lawns. I would love to have a job which would involve mowing lawns. That'd be the dream job. And if anybody out there has a spare lawnmower, please give it to me because I need one. Thank you.
There you are. Well, listen, junior brother, best of luck with your future career as a lawnmower.
Thank you.
And of course with the music. More importantly, I hope the music works out for you more than the cutting the grass does. And sure, look, you can pop out to me at home when you're back in Killarney. You can cut my grass, no bother.
I shouldn't have said anything.
Yeah, now we know now.
Oh, God.
Junior brother, thank you very much.
Thanks, Carl. Pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Glen Eagle INEC Arena podcast. If you liked this podcast, make sure you subscribe to this channel and follow us online for more.